Afternoon. 3 o'clock, November 3rd, East Coast time, 3 o'clock. 1 moment. Just going to grab a coffee. Be right back. Wait for a couple more people to pile in. 1 moment. Poppy's always falling off. Beth, Sarah. Slurping. That's rude. Okay, so looks like there's been a little bit of a new development. Maybe not so new. Let's have a look at it. Halifax Examiner seems to be taking a certain position all along on all this. Lisa Banfield suing federal, provincial governments alleging trumped-up charge was designed to cover RCMP failure. Zane Woodford. There she is testifying, or whatever that was, July 15th. Let's say it's really testifying. Certainly not a courtroom testimony. Hello, NS44. Excuse me. The common law spouse, Nova Scotia mass murderer, is suing federal and provincial governments, alleging the charge against her was an attempt to cover up the RCMP failures in April 2020. The RCMP announced the charge against Lisa Banfield in December 2020, accusing her of transportation to the killer, who the Halifax Examiner refers to by his initials. Well, at least you get initials here. Say that this is all very intentional. It's nothing about safeguarding people's feelings. Perpetrator. Those charges were withdrawn July 2022 after Banfield testified at the mass casualty omission. Last month, Banfield's lawyer, Moncton-based Brian Murphy, filed a notice of action in Amherst Court against the provincial and federal governments. Very interesting. Brian Murphy representing her here. The plaintiff states, and the fact is, quote, the plaintiff states, and the fact is that the Nova Scotia RCMP instigated a baseless investigation into the plaintiff's involvement in the events of April 18, 19, 2020 in an effort to draw attention away from errors committed by the Nova Scotia RCMP in their response to the events of April 18, 19, 2020. Well, he's alleging that, right? It's not fact. He's alleging that. Maybe poor choice of words. As a result of the RCMP's allegedly baseless investigation, the plaintiff was charged by the NSPPS, Nova Scotia Public Prosecution Service, on December 4th, 2020. As a result of this malicious prosecution, the plaintiff has suffered significant losses for which she claims general and special damages. None of the claims in the notice of action has been tested in a court. No, So to state that that's fact is very poor legal phrasing. But anyway, and neither level of government has filed a defense. Murphy argued the statement in the statement when the federal public safety minister, Bill Blair, and then provincial minister and attorney general Mark Fury announced a joint review, which later became a commission following public scrutiny, whatever, that placed intense pressure Nova Scotia RCMP as it threatened to expose errors committed by the Mounties on April 18, 19, 2020. So that would be in his statement. Placed intense pressure on Nova Scotia RCMP as it threatened to expose errors committed by. Interesting. Why is it not completed? We'll look for the statement of claim. Quote, the plaintiff states that in response to the announcement by Blair, Minister Blair, and Attorney General Fury, Fuzzy Fury, July 23rd, 2020, through Assistant Commissioner, though Assistant Commissioner Lee Bergerman publicly welcomed the joint, well, I'll complete it because it is a quote, joint inquiry, the RCMP began constructing charges against the plaintiff in order to create the appearance that the Nova Scotia RCMP was accomplishing something. The Nova Scotia RCMP was, quote, negligent, end quote, in its investigation, Murphy wrote, and it failed to notify Banfield that she was being investigated. Banfield gave interviews to police April 20, April 28th, and June 28th. There's actually more. There is the October interview, which nobody seems to have. I find that very interesting. There is an October, I forget what the date is. I've said it before, what the actual date is. Families have never seen it. I know that it exists. I believe it's the same date as the reenactment with Vardy. Never to see this, and I believe that is obviously what they base the charges on it. They do go back further, though, in looking at stuff with Lisa Bryan and Lisa and Co. But on those occasions, Banfield was not informed of her right to counsel. The plaintiff retained counsel on April 20, 2020, and spoke to Staff Sergeant Greg Vardy, brother-in-law of Max Libator, right? And was assured the plaintiff was viewed solely as a victim. Quote, Murphy wrote, Banfield only learned that she was under investigation when the RCMP announced charges, Murphy wrote. Okay. Nova Scotia Public Prosecution Service, NSPPS, along with the RCMP, Murphy alleges, quote, pursued a baseless and trumped-up charge, end quote, against Banfield. The plaintiff states, quote, the plaintiff states, and the fact is that the NSPPS and the Nova Scotia RCMP defamed the plaintiff with their accusations that she had provided the perpetrator with ammunition prior to the events of April 18, 19, 2020. It's going to be a very difficult case, I think, to prove. If you pay for it, you pick it up, and you request it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I'm sensing a settlement coming. The plaintiff states that such allegations were false, referred to the plaintiff, and were published in a statement by Superintendent Campbell on the RCMP website, December 4th, 2020, Murphy wrote. Quote, these charges were unlawful due to documented circumstance of coercive control and life-threatening violence over the entirety of their common law relationship. And that may be tested in court. I have no idea. I do believe that this was going to get settled out of court because it would be difficult to prove the ammunition stuff, but that she had absolutely no involvement in that or knowledge. The plaintiff states that the fact is that the defendants, the Nova Scotia RCMP and the NSPPS, ought to have known that these charges would cause injury to the plaintiff, end quote. The RCMP and the NSPPS's actions, Murphy wrote, were, quote, a blatant and callous disregard of the plaintiff's rights and were offensive to the ordinary standards of decent conduct in the community, end quote. Banfield is seeking to be determined general, special, and punitive damages for, quote, loss of reputation, quality of life, pain and suffering, and quote, loss of past income and loss of future earning capacity expenses, and quote, legal fees, and, quote, cost of care. I'm not familiar with that phrasing, but she's claiming medical, psychiatric, psychology, mental health care. So the dollar figure will be interesting, very interesting to see what they're claiming. Let's see if we can find claim. Not seeing anything here off the bat. Okay. Now, what I thought we could do, let's see, get a few more hellos in here. Yes, well, for defamation, pretty much is the suit and damages. Tara, good afternoon. What? Okay, Tara's quite upset. I would think that there's families right now quite upset. I did get messages. Yeah, she's definitely a piece of something, Chris. Okay, says Sarah. Nikki Halifax just dropped another article as well. Okay, helpful. Thank you very much. Says Invasion. Okay. Billy. Crystal, good afternoon. Cindy. Glow Watcher, the charges were the only thing the RCMP got right, except they did not read her rights. Now, that'll all have to be proven. Again, that will bring out more evidence, but I have a feeling they don't want that. So, because the government might actually test it, you never know. She's got money. Whoever pays for her lifestyle cannot afford poverty. Well, she had a lot of bank accounts. That seems to be. Did understand the banking system. I'm not faulting her for that, but seems interesting. more bank accounts than he had. And knows about the CDIC rules. But maybe she's just holding. Julia. Big dose of karma is needed. Okay. Vardy is her friend or Maureen's. There seems to be, yes, some friendship there, I would say, amongst Vardy and the Banfield crew. Survived the spandex, says Julia. Todd. Multi-million shut the fuck up lawsuit settlement. That's what I'm thinking. Ryan, hello. Yes, that's going to be difficult to say that she didn't understand that there was illegal activities. This is why I don't think the case will proceed. Article was a lot longer. They've updated before I could save. Okay. I did archive it, but that was the version I archived. So, right. Letter that you posted. They're not accepting any more documents after October 4th. Yes. It was a tweet this morning. Dumped out. That was an intentional thing. I'm actually putting together some stuff on the documents right now because the numbers aren't working for me at all. Sandy. 10.5 million, says Todd. You like the number 10.5? Are you trying to suggest something? Salty. Hello, Salty. Assuming you're quite upset about this, I would assume. Now, does this have something to do with Todd's tweet? Back sometime. When was that? Sorry. Oh, bollocks. How do you do this? Right, okay, so what date was that? Archived on the 29th to 28th. Okay, so I think I put it in there then. I believe that it was either on October 28th or 29th. Tim's tweets for that they were interesting. One of the saddest, most personally, Tim Bousquet, of course, the owner of the Halifax Examiner, or man, whatever, definitely a senior editor owner. Saddest moments of the Halifax Examiner. Most personally upsetting for me running a news organization is I can't always explain the decisions I make. So many competing values, competing issues. I can speak vaguely on some of these, but not others, not at all. For example, I have some knowledge of some terrible shit, but have not been able to report it for various reasons, sometimes legal, sometimes way more complicated. And he goes off into sometimes criticizing me for X. I didn't respond because I knew the person was suffering from mental health issues. People hatred on me because of that person's criticisms. But responding would have been unfair on my fault. So I just ate the hate. And there was something similar to the MCC coverage. Lots of people believed something was true. Very vague, very cryptic. But if I reported it in the way that countered that quote, truth, it would have outed someone's mental health status. And that would have been, and that was and is a real ethical dilemma for me. Then there are other reasons for doing things that I explained, if I explained, would be unfair to people out there in the world, or to completely innocent people, or to my employees. And the very fact of explaining that would be a bad act. There are people charged with crimes that I know stuff about, but I can't report on that for reasons. I have to maintain some ethical framework, and I can't explain to the world that I can't explain. This stuff weighs heavily on me and the source of great stress, personal pain. I probably get it a lot of it wrong, but I do the best I can with the knowledge that I have, assessing various factors. Yet I know people will hate on me for what they see without knowing the backstory. Anyway, that's vague. I know a lot of Twitter simply wants to hate on me, and that's just a fact of the world. Shrug. Okay, so don't understand it. Does that factor? Does that play a role in what he's saying? Okay, let's go to the other article. Thank you for pointing that out. No idea that was there. Suing provincial, federal governments. Of course, we also had Kinsella. Very poor results he got. Seemed to echo. Long ago, I did an interview with Josh. What's his name? Josh Coulter, former employee, police department under Kinsella before he moved to Halifax. Not a big fan. Don't know. Provinces, but he got poor test results, I would say. 97% opposed to him. No confidence. I'm not seeing a is this it? Okay. Is that the only Lisa Banfield article? Archive this one. Oops. It appears to be. So we've got survivor's guilt. Okay, so that word's already been thrown around. They were sowing the narrative on that. Earlier. It's all very interesting how this is panning out. Now, you sent a link to the other Halifax story. Sorry, I'm behind. I'm sorry. It's very hard for me to deal with multiple things. I kind of get engrossed. Survivor's guilt. Okay, so that is that story. Okay, thank you. I think Tim has a thing. All right, Freckles. Freckles is in here. Okay, hello, Freckles. I don't see you. People understand how hard it is to serve government masters, only want to report what they prove. Okay, now I thought what we could do is go back, revisit the day that James Lockyer appeared. There? That's not the video I'm looking for. Where did it go here? I dumped it right there. Very unfortunate. Here we go. This one. We could go back to, what date are we on? Darren Campbell. I'm going to get the right thing, right? Because they messed up my stuff. Can't quite do what I want to do. This was 3 months ago, July 26th. Now, July 26th is a very important day. This is Darren Campbell's second day of testimony, and I believe I have it queued up, and we can listen to when James appears at the MCC. I got it. I'm on it. All right. So let's have a listen.
Thank you. They're all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryce. Mr. Lockyer, do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. My name's James Lockyer, and I represent Lisa Banfield. Did you play a role in the decision to charge Lisa Banfield?
I didn't play a direct role in the decision to charge Lisa Banfield, but I was engaged in conversations in and around the charging of Lisa Banfield. So in terms of making that decision, no, that decision would have been made in conjunction with the investigative team with their advisory crown from the province.
All right. And who was the investigating team, first of all?
So as you would be probably more than familiar with, the command triangle would be the team commander at the top, which at that time, when these charges were laid, would have been Corporal Jerry Rose Berthum, the file coordinator, which was Constable Sean Stanton, and sorry, I should back up. The primary investigator was Jerry Rose Berthum, the file coordinator was Constable Sean Stanton, and the team commander was Sergeant Glenn Bonvie.
I didn't hear the team commander was?
Sergeant Glenn Bonvie.
All right. And did you participate in any of their discussions about whether or not charges should be laid?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell me, first of all, when they were?
I can't tell you exactly when they were unless I was actually referring to my notes, but it would have been much earlier into the investigation, somewhere before November or close to November of 2021. 2020, thank you. Yes, November 2020.
You say some were before November 20?
Somewhere in and around November of 2020, yes.
All right. Were you engaged in any discussions at any time between March and July of 2020, say?
I might have had awareness. I'm sure I was engaged in the discussions in and around what evidence the investigative team had uncovered in terms of the provision of ammunition and whether or not there could potentially be charges. I'd have to review my notes for that particular time to acquaint myself with when my conversations would have taken place, but I certainly would have had conversations, yes.
Would we have the notes of these conversations, sir, at the commission?
Yes, you would.
Okay, so if we look, we'd find them.
You should, yes.
All right. And you would have made notes of all these discussions, would you?
I would hope that I made notes of most of the discussions, but at times, depending upon what I'm in the middle of, when someone phones me and I pick up the phone, but I would probably point you to a discussion I remember specifically having with Chief Superintendent Chris Leather, Inspector Marchichu, and myself in and around specifically the challenges and the perceptions of the charging of Lisa Banfield and her brother and brother-in-law.
And when was that?
Again, without looking or referring to my notes from that date, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint the exact time, but it would have been just prior to those charges being laid.
Were you, in your examination by Commission Counsel, they referred you to your press release of December 4th of 2020, which is when you advised the media that the charges were being laid. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember.
So you would have discussed this with, sorry, is it Superintendent Leather? I'm not good at
Chief Superintendent Leather,
Chief Superintendent Leather,
Inspector Marchichu, who would have been essentially the monitoring officer of the major case investigation and also the officer in charge of the major crimes unit.
So this discussion would have been late November, early December. Is that what
It would
you're
have been prior to the release of the charges, yes.
You said it was very close to the
I would
date.
say it was close. It was fairly close. I wasn't having direct interactions with the public prosecution service here in Nova Scotia. The command triangle, particularly the primary investigator, would have been doing that. But I would have been notified by the investigative team that through their interactions with the prosecution office and their advisory crown, they felt there was sufficient evidence to proceed with the charge. And then I would have had a conversation. I remember specifically the conversation. I was in the criminal operations boardroom with Chief Superintendent Leather and Inspector Marchichu specifically about that.
All right. And who was the crown that had been assigned to this?
Shauna and Mark, I think were the
Arima?
first names.
Shauna McDonald and Mark Arima?
Yes, I believe so.
All right.
But I could be wrong. That is my sense as to who was involved.
So
Because I
they
know
were-
that they had some involvement.
Sorry. So they were part of the decision to charge, combination of the officers and the two crowns.
Well, I don't want to speak for others in terms of what evidence they may be able to provide. But what I can say is,
Sorry, officer.
Thank you. I just,
There's an objection, I'm sorry.
yes, thank you. I just object to Chief Superintendent Campbell discussing here any discussions that were had with Crown Counsel with respect to the laying charge. I believe they'll be protected by solicitor-client privilege.
Mr. Lockyer?
Mr. Commissioner, I would submit that this wouldn't be a question of privilege as to whether or not to lay charges, particularly because the two prosecutors that the witnesses mentioned became the two who actually conducted the prosecution, although subsequently a year later they dropped out. And this is certainly potentially a material issue for the Commission to consider whether or not it was appropriate to lay charges in the first place, and who came to that or who was a part of that decision is, in my submission, relevant to the task that you have.
Well, if you're exploring conversations about whether or not to lay charges involving Crown Counsel, isn't that a privilege?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Commissioner.
If I understood your response to the objection, you are indicating a desire to get into the conversations about why charges would be laid and whether charges would be laid with Crown Counsel. Is that not?
Not the conversations. I'm
Well,
asking,
that's just what you asked.
no, I'm asking
So
if
he was
they
part
were-
of they were part of the conversations to lay charges, I thought your question was.
Oh, well, what I'm really interested in, whether they're part of a decision. That's what I'm really asking. That's what I'm trying to find out. And the witnesses already said they were, so that's why I followed up. I wanted to know who the Crown was.
Well, the witness said they were because I didn't see the objection on time, but in response,
Thank you. I do. I think it's kind of a distinction without a difference. I mean, there's no problem with him asking Chief Superintendent Campbell about the RCMP's discussions, but when we're involving Crown Counsel, I mean, there's an element here of prosecutorial discretion that we're wading into here. So I don't think the provincial Crown has counsel representation here, but nevertheless, where they're engaging and in discussing the charges and their position, I believe that is protected by privilege.
yep. You've put on the record as an officer of the court that they were part of the prosecution?
Yes, they were, Mr. Commissioner. They ultimately handed over the file they conducted judicial pretrials or a judicial pretrial with me, but they went off the file in the fall of 2021.
All right, we'll allow what's on the record already, but that's it.
You will allow the question? Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the question has been asked and answered. The question before the objection, before we recognize the objection. So there's no need to re-ask it. It's on the record. We will allow it to remain on the record.
Okay, I thought the witness had vacillated a little bit on whether or not they were part of the decision. Maybe I'm wrong. If you don't think so, I'll carry on. I'll move on.
Carry on, please.
Sure. Do you know, sir, if a part of the decision to charge Lisa Banfield, do you know if Constable Bent was consulted?
I don't know if Constable Bent was consulted.
know?
No, I don't.
Do you know if any victim service organization was consulted, sir?
I don't know. I wasn't part of those conversations.
Do you know if anyone other than the two Crowns you've named and the police officers you've named were consulted?
I don't have that information, no.
Well, you also, a stratagem was engaged, sir, in the questioning of Lisa Banfield, and as it happened, her brother and brother-in-law, that enabled the police to avoid giving the three of them their 10B rights before they were questioned about the transfer of ammunition. Did you know that?
In terms of reviewing the actual transcripts of the statements, I have no awareness of what cautions or rights that they were provided. I can't speak to that because I wasn't part of those actual activities.
All right. It's not so much, actually, in Lisa's case it is, but in the case of the other two, it was a stratagem that was set up and discussed and recorded in writing before the interviews were ever conducted. Were you a part of those conversations?
No, I was not.
In particular, that they would make sure, for example, in the stratagem, and one runs into, I think it's 5 pages long, a stratagem that if they were told, each of them, immediately before being questioned about the transfer of ammunition, that they didn't have to engage in the interview if they didn't want to, and they could leave anytime they want. That was a part of the stratagem that was recorded in writing before the interviews. Did you know about that?
Well, I never saw, and what you keep referring to as stratagem, in my previous experience as a member of an interview team in British Columbia, we would have what we would call an interview plan. So I'm assuming what you're referring to might be the interview plan.
Call it what you will.
And the contents of the interview plan, I never had any eyes on those interview plans.
So you weren't privy to the idea that they would, when they interviewed the three of them, they would try and make sure that they didn't have to give them their rights?
No, I wasn't aware of any of that, no.
Okay. Did you say you didn't play a role in the decision, sir, so you're not the right person to ask about the decision, but did you venture an opinion on the decision, or did you just receive the decision and act accordingly?
Well, to be clear, playing a role in the decision would rest always between the command triangle and the advisory Crown, or the prosecution office, if there was sufficient evidence to proceed. Certainly, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been around long enough to understand that there needs to be sufficient evidence to proceed, and that it would be in the public interest to lay a charge. Those were two considerations always at the front of my mind, personally, was, is there enough evidence or sufficient evidence to proceed, and would it be in the public interest? The conversation that I referenced earlier that I had with Chief Superintendent Leather and Inspector Marchichu without the command triangle, which is not normal. Normally, I would include the command triangle in a conversation like that, was to get some feedback from the criminal operations officer in and around how this might be perceived, the optics of charging Lisa Banfield and what that might look like, and how certain groups would perceive that, those steps. But the conversation that we had, and again, without my notes in front of me, but they have been disclosed, and you will find them, If you focus on that period of time just before the charges were laid, you will see I did make notes about the conversation, not in great detail in terms of exact quotations made, but the essence of that was in and around the debate of public interest largely, because I believed from what I was advised by the command triangle that there was sufficient evidence that would support a charge. But to me, the central issue was the public interest aspect. And included in that public interest aspect would have been, one, the objectives that were set in the investigation, and two, how the families may have perceived whether we charged or did not investigation, and two, how the families may have perceived whether we charged or did not charge.
So the optics were discussed, is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would say that the optics were discussed, yes.
And did the optics include?
Interesting comment there at 6:42:13. Laying the groundwork for the civil suit. We'll go with the RCMP.
That it might be perceived as an attempt to divert attention from the responsibility of the RCMP for what had happened on the night of the murders?
No, that actually never crossed my mind personally. Although in the media, it became an issue.
So it crossed their mind, yes.
Yes, it crossed their mind.
Yes.
It didn't cross my mind. What was central to me in terms of the optics portion was, for example, in terms of domestic violence victims.
Yes. And Julia points out, I think we were earlier in the morning, right? Seemed like Mr. Pinio had advanced knowledge of what was going to go down. He was waiting on Mr. Lockyer. He's like, well, maybe my colleague, Mr. Lockyer, will be asking questions. You guys remember that? Anyway, interesting. And Mr. Lockyer didn't show up for a few hours, so there seemed to be some knowledge of what was going to happen.
Victim blaming. I thought that would be a significant issue that would need to be addressed in terms of the victim families and what their expectations were or weren't, how sympathetic they might be or non-sympathetic to Lisa Banfield. That was an area of concern for me. Those were the optic issues that I was thinking about. And also another consideration that I personally had was, we were trying to advance the investigation in terms of the provision and the importation of the firearms. Firearms are only as dangerous as they can be unless you have the ammunition to place into those firearms. So that was another consideration that I was, in my sense, personally, I was weighing out optically how that would look. It's one thing to have a gun. It's one thing to have bullets. It's another thing to have guns and bullets together, because then they can become lethal. You can certainly hurt someone with a gun without bullets, but you can't inflict the same level of carnage if you don't.
I don't know how many of you understand what that comment is that I said there to Todd, because I think it became pretty obvious what was going on. And so I asked him about artwork. Do you guys know what artwork is referring to? Have to be kind of careful talking about some of this stuff. Oops, sorry. Did I not turn the screen back on? Derp. The artwork comment here.
Don't have ammunition for them.
You've gone on a bit, sir, but I just want to go back to the question I asked you that led to what you've been saying for the last several minutes. Did you venture an opinion as to whether or not charges should be laid against Lisa Banfield?
In that meeting?
Yes.
Yes, from Chief Superintendent Leather.
And did you support their decisions to lay charges?
I supported their decision, meaning the decision that was made between the investigative team, the command triangle, and as I understand it, the Crown Prosecution Service, as well as the decision, and certainly Chief Superintendent Leather will be appearing before the commission. I would expect that he may be asked similar questions. And I can recall him supporting that decision as well.
And this meeting that you're talking about, were the two Crown prosecutors there at the time?
No, they were not.
So how did you know that they were involved in the decision?
That's been asked and answered, Mr. Lockyer.
Okay, sure. All right, that's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lockyer. We'll take a 10-minute break.
Thank you. The proceedings are now on break and will resume in 10 minutes.
Oh boy. McDonald is really shitting his pants. Okay, well now he can see a little bit more underneath that McDonald knows. They all know what the fuck is going on, and they're playing tiddlywinks. Shut down, asked and answered, and let's call a break. Question is why? Yeah, I don't know. Mr. Lockyer is setting up a suit against the RCMP for sure, for being wrongfully charged. Rob Pinio. The break this morning. Not understanding quite what's going on. Did they just set this whole thing up? So there could be a suit? Advisory councils named Mark Harum. I know that name. Sean and McDonald were mentioned. I know those names. I've seen them. Yeah, sure. Just hold on a second. I've seen. Yeah, sure. Just 1 second here. Share the link. Todd will understand what I'm talking about. I'm smelling an artwork thing here. Artwork. Do you have the link? I'm reluctant to hand out mods, Peter. So if you could link it, that would be great. Oh, okay. He's got to have some powerful stuff. So he's going to open up something. Well, not necessarily. Settlement. Sue and then settle. Easy, quick money. Mm. 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 I think this is going to be a longer break. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it might just be possibly an easy transfer. Certainly got them by the cojones. Not sure how Lisa gets to be in the driver's seat on everything. This is very strange. Who was that quoted that earlier? Is that accurate? I don't know. I don't know that, so I'm going to have to ask about how. I think that's can't be possibly. Somebody suggested $3 million for the 9/11 commission. I don't think so, but this whole shit show has cost so much money. And her legal bill must be astronomical. And comparatively to families, my understanding is they don't get, I mean, their bills are expensive, but I'm not thinking anywhere near. Who funded her legal bills for, like, did the taxpayer fund her legal bills for everything? What about her brothers, her brother and brother-in-law? Used unwittingly. Well, there's something very deep going on underneath that we're not privy to. Always has been, right? But it's showing itself a lot more. Yes. The commission pays her legal bill because she's a participant, but I don't know if they're paying her legal bill outside for her charges. I don't know that. I just was putting that on the table. I'm not sure who is funding that. just see like money going underneath the table. Artwork. Artwork. I can't see it. If she wanted to, right, she would have gone the whole 9 yards on hers and pled not guilty and stayed with that. No. She doesn't want to talk publicly. She's never wanted to talk publicly. Yes. Well, the not inquiry, I don't want to highlight that because it's not an inquiry, and I don't agree with that word. But yes, because she is a participant, she's being paid for. And McDonald is shitting his pants. Why is Lisa in the driver's seat on everything? I'm not getting this. What does she have? Who is she? All these special concessions everywhere. Everywhere. Her own, all victim services, family. Something very not right with all this. All the cash. I'm not getting it. Yeah, that's a good question. She was worried right away by public perception. That doesn't turns around, sues the estate, relinquishes her rights on it so that she can sue it. She's done a lot of legal moves that are very interesting. She's got good advice. Patently a propagandistic exercise. She must be holding a lot of brown envelopes. A lot of them. What does she know? And about whom? very, very special. Oh, she certainly knows everything, I think. But she knows, I think she knows a lot more about pre-1819. And maybe she's the brown envelopes, she's holding it. And they're scared of her. You know, maybe she's got a dead man's key sitting around somewhere. And we're going to be held under threat for a long time. Pay, protect. Just theorizing. I'm just theorizing. I don't know. Comments are really good to reread. I don't know. I don't know if that case. They are. They're fucking terrified by all appearances. It appears that way. Why did Bent's name get raised? Because Bent didn't deal with her. I don't know what's going on. I'll tell you though, whatever this whole and it's just been such a shit show in the background. Like, there wouldn't be enough time in my lifetime to tell you everything that's been going on. A lot. Because only what, a lot of people see is just the surface, just the tip of the iceberg. I may be below water, but then there's stuff, whatever's below that. Whatever the fuck is going on is absolutely absurd. Does this tie to Ottawa and what all's going on down there now? Remember, they never released her emails. Never. Hundreds and hundreds of pages of them. Well, see, that would have been my immediate perception, right? That was my immediate perception, but she packs a piss pile of power. I mean, it's true. Look at them. They're all fucking running around slobbering like dogs. What's the least that we can do? They know that, they can't let her go completely. So then they charge her with nothingness. The whole thing is, ugh. Yeah, something. Maybe it's not the RCMP or the government, something. She's got juice on somebody. Or the Banfields are a somebody playing off as a nobody. Ooh. Yeah, you're missing out with back up to where Lockyer comes in. Oh dear. This total something's going on. I'd be really interested to hear what your take on it is. Oh, that's nice. You guys noticing that? I believe she's spoken to me about this before, but it looks like O'Dear's account is not showing in the chat. Huh. Okay. And Pinio's comment this morning, yeah. What did you say again? You can never satisfy a blackmailer. If that's what's going on, you can never satisfy them. Ever. Yeah, I found stuff on Banfields I've never talked about, but some spooky stuff. No, not really. I mean, bastard. Some, to some extent, some. No, they mess with this channel really, really bad. Really bad. Okay. Pinio wanted a break, wanted to discuss with his team. Pinio said Lockyer interested in being there. And what happened this morning? Yeah, I don't. What was his exact quote? Pinio pushed for the break as he wanted Lockyer in the room, which was very odd. Yep, that's an understatement. What is So what happened? What transpired this morning with Lisa? I missed something transpired, right? Everything is gone. Now the charges all got dropped. What happened there? You guys will have to fill me in. Let's see. Okay, so that's the was a busy day. It was a busy day. I don't know if I get into the other part of that. I'm not sure. I didn't see the other, but of course, this is what happens, right? There are many events that transpire around a certain day. You know, they could seemingly be unrelated, but I don't believe that they are. Yeah, if we can find something. Okay. Let's see what global shitstorm wants to say here. Better archive this. Criminal charge. Oh, and they've already updated it. Look at that. Huh. Wonder if somebody snagged that one before. Criminal charge withdrawn. Let me just check and see. One moment, please. This one is what I want. Okay, we'll let that run away in the background. Criminal charge withdrawn against spouse of Nova Scotia mass killer. Oh, interesting. So they had a video. It's not working. Okay, there it is. Lisa Banfield, spouse of Nova Scotia of gunman, killed 23. All right, fuck off with whatever that is. Okay, well, let's actually.
Replica RCMP cruiser. Banfield said he. The inquiry hearing publicly from the gunman's spouse of 19 years, Lisa Banfield. Questions about her knowledge of Gabriel Wortman's police paraphernalia and replica RCMP cruiser. Banfield said he collected random things, but she never thought he would hurt anyone. Asked why she didn't report his illegal firearms to police.
There was a couple times that he, if we had a fight, he put the gun to my neck to scare me and so that he could blow off my head. So I was scared. I'm not gonna say anything.
I've never seen mention of
Banfield
that
says the
ever.
gunman controlled her and physically assaulted her on several occasions over the years, using scare tactics too.
10
I think
times.
he was just to intimidate me. So I wouldn't say anything.
What was just to intimidate you, Lisa?
Shooting the gun in the house. He had the handgun by the nightstand, and he said, if any police come, I'm shooting. So when they asked me that, I didn't want them to go in because I didn't want them to get hurt.
But victims' families had high hopes to learn from Banfield's testimony.
My big question would be, why would he have targeted my brother, who was so far out of the way? I mean, what set him off that bad with my brother?
All I know is that the perpetrator knew my stepfather. The rest of it is just a show to me.
I'm tired of like 2.5 years into this. When this started, we thought we could all sit back and just let an independent group do it, but it's not independent.
Patterson Law represents the families of 14 victims. They haven't been able to directly cross-examine Banfield due to the inquiry's trauma-informed approach. Lawyer Michael Scott says they wanted more details about April 18th and 19th, 2020, when 22 people lost their lives.
I don't know if Miss Banfield is lying. I don't know if Miss Banfield is telling the truth. I don't know if Miss
These are
Banfield
old
is
clips.
mistaken, because we don't have an opportunity to ask her any questions.
They walked out before proceedings finished. Thankful for family support, Banfield says there were gaps in services she received after the rampage.
It's hard for me to say this because I know I'm here and my family's here, and there's so many people that aren't here. So I don't want to complain about what I don't have.
The inquiry resumes next week. Callum Smith, Global News, Halifax.
Okay, so an old story. Okay, let's continue on. Banfield charged March unlawfully providing her common law spouse ammunition month leading up, and all of those legal finanglings they were doing there. Very interesting. The brother pleading guilty on what was he was due like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Then he pled guilty on the Friday. Lots of legal moves going on. It's a great relief to her. It's a great relief to her sisters. It's a great relief to me as well. Lawyer James Lockyer. Why would he be involved in this one? Never made sense to me. It's all part of Lisa trying to restart her life, he said. Crown prosecutor Sarah Lane told Theodore Tax, okay, and remember the article, and they deleted that article. The special meeting that they were going to have, and he said, "You'll understand." To the judge, he said, "I want to have a closed session. You'll understand exactly why when I explain it to you." Do you remember all that stuff? There was a lot of weirdness around all that too. Okay, so that was what case? Oh, that was this video. It's always a lot of shit floating around at the same time. This one. Very strange what happened that day. And they deleted it in the news. A couple of key lines out of those news articles. In fact, I think the original mention of an interview, the summertime interview date, was listed in that article, Elizabeth McMillan's article that day. This article, judge in case Nova Scotia gunman denies defense request for private meeting. Court case involving Lisa Banfield due back May 5th. So this article was altered. I believe, I think I did get it archived. I think I go through it in that video. Takes me a little while to find it though. Perhaps going back and re-watching, when you want, speed it up, obviously. But there was a request. She had been scheduled to enter a plea Tuesday, but her lawyer, James Lockyer, called into Dartmouth Provincial Court and requested an adjournment so that there could be a judicial pre-trial conference, a meeting held in chambers as opposed to court. I think it would be a very helpful process, said Lockyer, who's based in Toronto, if I were to tell you why, I think you'd very quickly agree with me. I'm not trying to be difficult, believe me. Very odd. It's not a normal move legally. Judge Theodore Tax initially agreed to the meeting. He noted it wasn't typical request, but added that Lockyer wasn't required to explain. Quote, "It sounds like there are some issues that need to be discussed in detail with the Crown Attorney, maybe before a plea," said Judge Tax. During the brief court appearance, however, in the hours that followed, Tax determined that such a meeting should not go ahead. As scheduled, April 14th. He asked that the case return to court March 31st. Upon further reflection, didn't take him a few moments later. Upon further reflection, the court is of the view that such a request is not in conformance with the rules of the court or open court's principle. Now look who's commenting. This is interesting. Jennifer Stairs, Director of Communication with the Nova Scotia Judiciary. You know, I'm not a lawyer, but I don't see them often coming out in the media. Can't recall. So you had a spokesperson on behalf of judges come out and make a statement. On Wednesday, Tax thanked the Crown attorney, the Crown and the defense for returning to court on such short notice. Crown prosecutor Mark Hirma and defense counsel Jessica Zita, who works with Lockyer, told the court they had plans to discuss issues related to the case in a teleconference next week in closed session. Tax set the May 5th as the court date. He said he would hear a plea at that time and consider another adjournment if lawyers felt it was necessary. The case is proceeding summarily, meaning a judge alone will be presiding over the matter. Summary offenses are considered less than serious than indictable offenses, fines less than $5,000 in jail terms, not to exceed 2 years less a day. The charge that she got was a complete nothing burger charge. There are two charges that could be applicable in trafficking of ammunition, and they all got the lesser of the two. Banfield's brother, James Blair Banfield, 54, who was heavily redacted, more so than Lisa, funnily enough, out of documents, of Beaver Bank, Nova Scotia, and her brother-in-law, Brian Brewster, 61, of Lucasville, are also accused unlawfully for providing the shooter, Gabriel Wortman, with .223 caliber Remington cartridges, 40 caliber Smith & Wesson cartridges, in the month leading up to the massacre that started in Port-au-Pic. I believe there's actually purchases that may be older. So a couple of things arise out of this. I mean, obviously, if you can smuggle guns, one would think you could smuggle ammunition. This is an odd one. It's got all the secret cubby holes and the tornos and all this other stuff. Can't seem to get ammunition. Odd. You had James Blair Banfield's very last-minute court appearance where he switched his plea, even though he would have been going into court literally within a matter of a few days. For some reason, that Friday, he came in. I don't remember the date. Oh, there we go. It must have been sometime just prior to April 12th. And he came in and he changed his plea to guilty at the very last second. He pled guilty. He didn't let the case run its course or wait for a few days just to plead guilty in court when he already had an appearance, which is what people do. And frankly, judges don't do that. They'd be like, why the fuck are you wasting my time when I'm going to see you in a few days? You can tell me that you're going to plead guilty then. No, has to come in on the Friday just before, literally a few days. Very strange. Brewster's case is back at before April 19th, the first appearance of the mass shooting when the RCMP announced the charges. The force released a press release that three had no prior knowledge of actions April 18 and 19. But this again would be very difficult to prove that she had no prior knowledge if she was aware of weapons smuggling, which it appears she was by her own admissions. She is the one who purchased the ammunition. She's the one who asked for the ammunition. She is the one who picked up the ammunition, being Lisa Banfield, to the best of my knowledge. Possession is 9/10 of the law. There is no definitive proof to say Mr. Wortman was involved in any way, shape, or form. So how is it that then she's going to equally get the charges dropped on the same day? Let's see, where's that? So that's the 26th, right? I think let's see here. Okay. So she had her charges dropped, right? July 26th. Okay. The same day that Lockyer is in court, the MCC. Same day that Darren Campbell just happens to be there. And you also had something I was waiting for a long time. Again, it could just be coincidental, and it could be. And they are throwing a lot of chum out there to confuse. There is definitely some connections. I was waiting for this case to appear for the longest time. And then poof, magically, it just appears on the same day. And there's some very similar names involved in all of it. And of course, at some capacity, again, I'm not throwing out any accusations any which way, but in some capacity, Jamie Blair was a witness to events that transpired with the Mersrose, which Les Greenwood was involved in part, which then starts to open up a lot of other stuff, including Quebec and some other things. But very strange that it all happens on the same day. It was the same thing as some other events that transpired were, you guys remember the federal raid in Halifax? The trucks driving crazy, and we had the Indo. That was the same thing to do with Lisa that same day, December 4 or something like that? December 4? Takes all this. Somewhere I have even some recordings of different things. And then you also had the Halifax Police Department with the Fill You Full of Lead story that happened. And then a couple of days later, the partial video appeared somewhere. And then a couple of days later, the full video appeared somewhere. But it got everybody wound up like a 10-cent toy. Meanwhile, some other things were going on in the background. And of course, that's a major piece, or that was a piece of the Halifax Police Department. So that's in the fall of 2021, annual general meetings, executive was given a mandate by the general membership to conduct a vote of confidence in Chief Kinsella. The executive does not take this action lightly. However, we have come to a point where we cannot, where we believe that this vote is necessary. And of course, then this vote resulted in 97%, with a high percentage of vote that was cast, I believe. And some of the issues that they directly spoke to were not being supported, unfair, non-transparent promotionals, PTSD, bad car conditions, blah, 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 PTSD stuff, injured members return to work, considerable reduction, career. And if you guys remember this story very much at the beginning about the Heidi stuff, and that was, I could never really confirm that one way or another, but here it is. Interference and poor decision-making respecting Portapique mass shooting, forbidding members to pay respect to Constable Stevenson on Wear Red Day, which I could never get confirmation of, right? There was that article that rolled out in the Halifax Examiner of the, what was this? Deep Throat or something within Halifax PD, and he said a few things. And sure enough, Kinsella appears to not have allowed members of the Halifax Regional Police to wear red, even though Heidi technically was kind of employed somewhat in that because it was an integrated department. She was integrated out of Halifax. So many things go on and tie together, and then you get the news. You know, that was somewhere I have that. I know I played it in a video a couple of times where there was a story about Lisa appearing in court, but it had been completely sidelined by the snow that they threw out. And they did like was that the racist pullover story of the Halifax? I think he got thrown out. I think he's not having a lot of confidence. And interestingly enough, Simmons? Is it Simmons? What's his name? Simmons? And there was some claims, apparently. I don't know that to be 100%. Dean Simmons. Inspector Dean Simmons. RCMP at gunpoint, but apparently that may not have quite been so. And apparently the RCMP had, wouldn't you know, dash cam footage that may have had slightly a different angle on all that. The dash cam, which they never have dash cam for anything else, which funnily enough, I know I jump all over the place. Somebody was giving me shit again the other day, but it just triggers one thing after another. Okay. So this was released in the latest dump, to which the numbers don't match up, but I'm we'll deal with that one at a later point. Supplementary report. Now, Mass Casualty Commission supplementary report, police vehicle dashboard camera, watch guard follow-up. Remember I've spoken about the watch guard? I think I put a bunch of shit out on the tweet. A chain of them. Well, it's not what you think, sadly. Did the MCC look at all to the RCMP for their dash cam footage, video, audio, which they certainly have and was confessed by Band? Finally, they owned up to it. Did the mass casualty ever try to get that? To the best of my knowledge, no. And the report, well, it's actually looking for dash cam footage from 28B11. Excuse me? Really now? You don't ask for the most pertinent information, evidence, which would fill in so many gaps, like lots. Would show the end of Blueberry Field Road. I still have that video to make on the roads through the woods. I've already trashed Blueberry Field Road exit time to the point that there is massive amounts of reasonable doubt. And two officers, Dion, who drives by a car, and of course they never followed up on that. Dion Sutton on his way. And at a different time, another car, which was also heading out of the Portapic area down Highway 2, which was passed by two EHS people. Well, that kind of takes the video from Wilson's gas stop, garbage. Also takes the whole exit out of Blueberry Field, throws it in complete doubt. You've got Autumn and Dean. That's another piece to it. And the road through the woods, which, again, I haven't gotten into, but that's kind of trashy too. Now, that destroys a lot of the timeline because a lot of things are contingent upon their hypothetical theory of the exit time, right? Because then you've got witnesses who are seeing him exiting, driving down, what's that the road? Nasstown Road. Is it Nasstown Road? Heads up to DeBert? No. What's the name? Old Station Road. You have witnesses on there. Well, what about that? Okay, then you also have, I believe it's the boys, but kind of trashed that too. Their own statements comparatively trashed them. The media didn't even touch that. Patterson is representing Chief McNeil. Station Road, yeah, Station Road. So then if you have cars and witnesses seeing cars then, well, now we have technically 3 cars. How does that work? 3 marked RCMP cars. What about the Angelina's Pizzeria video? That's contingent upon the exit time. Now that's gone. That would cause a big problem. You have video. Of the supposed Wortman car. But doesn't appear that that's possible. Odd. This is becoming highly problematic. 104, 102. You're rattled? Why are you rattled? And now we have the latest move, which you could see coming a mile away. I was like, oh, I see what you're doing. There's going to be a lawsuit coming. Good. Thank you for that. Again, I'm not trying to run down Lisa Banfield. That's not my intent. If you have proof of all this stuff, it would be very easy to furnish. The problem is you don't. Predicating things on false or shaky let's call it what it is. At the very best is shaky. Brenda torpedoed all that. The RCMP themselves were in high doubt of what Brenda said. Initially, contradictory statements and that she had a weapon, and obviously wasn't very fearful in the move and all that seemed to be, you don't move, you move to the same place that he works, where he lives. And that's your sole witness, because the Ellison brothers' statements don't work. And then you had Elson Sutherland, who sadly is deceased. You don't have anything there. John Hudson and Nancy Hudson. And here's an interesting one. Oh, I see. They put it back up now. Now, this statement initially had been pulled for a few days. John Hudson's. Remember when I read that? And I used that in the Lisa, looking at Lisa and what Lisa had said. I'm still waiting for that report from Byfield. She said there was all kinds of evidence of other victims. I haven't seen it. There's some pretty pointed things that she said. So, where is that report? When you predicate things on shaky, or in the case of, not to change topics, but in the case of what's going on nationally with guns, and you predicate things on, in that case, knowingly dishonest information, well, it's like building on quicksand. It's total garbage. So if she wants to sue, okay, better prove your case. Because I don't think you had a very good opportunity to. You didn't. The MCC didn't allow you to be cross-examined in an open way, in a transparent way. Families never got their, what do they call it? Restorative justice. Gunk. reading Judge Curran's report. I'm reading through a raft of things. Judge Curran's interview, Judge Curran, who was a temporary director of CERT for a small period of time. Interesting that he says that there was quite a few domestic violence cases, alleged cases, complaints in with CERT against police officers. Anybody want to touch on that at the MCC? No? Yeah. Judge Bejan, who was opposing counsel against Wortman, apparently was warned and all this other stuff. He doesn't understand how that's, he's very baffled, as am I, how that quite came to pass, which would need a further dive, I would say, because it seems like there was prior knowledge going on. What Judge Bejan repeatedly says in his interview with the MCC, which of course they released late, September 23rd, is that when they released it? He repeatedly says he does not believe that it was a domestic violence incident. We have mentions of parties. Now we're back to Mercedes and the first story that came out initially. BU. Don't know if you guys, this is not really highly disproving or proving of anything. September 20th, they interviewed a person by the name of BU. Actually, I believe go by BU. This is a very odd interview. Like, very odd. This person was formerly a prisoner in the women's correctional facility. Oh, so I was like, maybe there's something in here. Spoke highly of Atlanta. Seems to have, like, and she rightfully states that she's quite articulate, but it really seems to have nothing to do with anything. Like, there are some really important issues on the table. Yet the mass casualty went off and interviewed this lady who doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything other than, let's see here. I don't know, maybe it's all in this personal information stuff. Let's see here. At the time of what happened, she was no longer incarcerated. She was out on parole, I believe, from my limited reading. My understanding of this, she's a prisoner advocate. Don't know what that exactly entails. Sounds like something more, let's see here, where is it? Like, a lot of these interviews, very, very strange. Apparently prisoners went on lockdown. I don't know. It seemed to say that was kind of not totally abnormal. Where is it here? Talking about housing in the jail and this kind of thing. The facilities in the jail. Let's see here. And so I was in constant contact on the telephone with the inmate committee chair who was inside. So I would get a lot of information of what was going on the inside, mostly because of the pandemic. But then when this happened, of course, because of this, so we spoke a lot about that because a lot of people had relationships with Alana. I mean, she was there for a long time. A lot of people were there for a long time. They were in and out. CM's correctional manager. Okay, so then they go on and they say, where is it here? Othering people and just some very different things going on there. Okay. And that was something else I was going to say too. It'll come back to me. Oh, yeah. About her family, when you mentioned her family. So, just one thing I want to add is so I'm trying to plan this big gala. You mentioned, big gala for one of my investees to do this big announcement. It's an investment that helps people, reintegrate back into society. It has full wraparound service, stuff like this. So I was trying to think, I've been racking my brain about, it'd be good to have somebody because I want to attract, people who can support this, things like that. And I want to get people from corrections. I want to get people from, government. I want even the premier to be there, things like that. And I was thinking of, my VP of finances. Not sure what this lady does, or I can understand that she's a prisoner advocate. I'm not sure who's paying, if that's her profession, who's paying for that. VP of finances? She was just out on parole, I think, December 2019. You should have a celebrity there or something, attract a lot of people to this gala. And I thought, what would be a better way of the sector of the portfolio that I manage and stuff like that? I would love to see if the family would give me permission to have this big gala and in memory of her and other corrections officers who have lost their lives, because she wasn't the only officer that was a victim. It seems strange to me. I don't know if it's me. And then they say, you have something like that meaningful, I would love to see if her family would give permission for that to happen. Yeah, something I've been thinking about. My 11:30 is bothering me, says the lady from Elizabeth Fry. Like, give me 5 minutes. I canceled all my meetings today. Good for you. I do it all the time. Krista, rainbow glasses. I just drive to the wrong place. You travel a lot and get nowhere. Okay. I have to run. What? Do we have people just driving around getting lost on purpose? Is that what that's about? Something about Kleenex and laughing. I mean, it's a very odd interview, especially given the fact that you have some major stuff that has really come out, like that SITRAP report that nobody wanted to touch, that they were clearly aware of. You have brain tapes. You have, looks to be another ongoing corruption case. You have domestic violence cases in CERT that, according to Pat Curran, there seems to be quite a few reports of, who then goes off to the police complaints commissioner. Of course, he gets the shaft and thrown under the bus. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Phone calls with Leather. Leather's going to have a meeting in 3 days, which is going to blow the lid off of all kinds of stuff to do with that SITREP report. Of course, I sent that around. Nobody was fucking interested in that thing. I'm like, how could nobody in the media, no politician, nobody even want to touch this? Of course, Felix, who had the discretionary power, decided not to investigate it, even though it's such a serious matter. The SITREP report on July 10th, 2020, went straight to the commissioner in Ottawa. I don't think that's the regular process. And then Leather's running around trying to get this thing conducted, and nobody will touch it. Felix is like, "Oh, did you talk to me about that?" Yeah, I should start. I needed to the other day when I was going to read the rest of that interview. I never did finish it, and that is where there's a lot of stuff. So I should finish that off. I should do another stream, and that can go directly into the, I think I have a July 10th folder or something like that, because that rest of that interview with Chris Leather, is that the Chris Leather, the rest of the part of the Chris Leather one? One moment. Or is it the Felix one? I think it's Felix. Has lots of interesting things in there. Krista's leaf. Lots of leaf floating around. Leaf everywhere. Leaf on all sides. Leaf on the commission council. Leaf on the investigator, legal counsel. Leaf in the family's defense counsel, or are making a presentation, so they're playing all sides. They were one of the participants. Kind of stinks. Oh yeah, I'm familiar with Cameron Ortiz. He's his defense lawyer is this very important case. Just magically gets appointed at the last minute to become a judge, I believe. Wouldn't you know? No, case has just gone off into somewhere else. I'm sensing a Jordan decision. For those of you who are familiar with Jordan decisions, I think that case might just disappear because it's taken too long. Cameron Ortiz, who was hired by former CTV, who then went on to head stuff with CSIS and RCMP. Media. No Mockingbird there. It's not like they don't see the stories. What was that? Oh, we have the members. We expect the members and media to fill in the gaps, as Brenda said in her tape. Really? No. We expected the question to be answered. That's when it would be answered. It's in the question and answer period. How the fuck would you know what the media's asking? How about down in the trucker one where they were planting the stories and basically that got admitted to? What the fuck is going on? Well, of course, though. Those crazy tinfoil people who say that, oh, you pay $600 million to media. Maybe you expect something in return. You throw out things like propaganda laws in Canada, in the U.S., Smith-Mundt Act. Could it be that the government is running white, gray, black propaganda? Have they been doing it the whole time? You're goddamn right. But now it's a free-for-all. You have people coming out of the Laurier Hotel. Who had the Laurier Hotel booked up? Oh, that would be the RCMP with flags. And then they just kind of make a and run around and go down the stairs and go back inside. Some photographer who is Trudeau's photographer just happens to be taking pictures and then he disappears. But those flags, you know, plaster that all over the news. Even things like they were running articles fact checking down in the United States about the arsons in Ottawa. And they're like mostly false. Or sorry, the premise that was not true. Oh, no. There were arsons going on. Huh? What are you talking about? There was no arsons. There were no mass assaults. Fact checkers. Well, who are the fact checkers? Who pays them? Oh, you're off, Tara. What was your question? You're probably gone now. Sorry. Millions of dollars funding inquiries. It's just transfers. Transfers of money, giving people jobs. Give people jobs, you know. Prisoners vote. Prisoners vote. Better stay on the good side of them, because then you get some votes. Red Cross, yes, Red Cross interview removed. It's almost like our media, military, intelligence, CSIS, and RCMP are all prancing down Main Street holding hands. The Vision 150. Oh, yeah, I don't even want to go there. I was here earlier, had to leave quickly, back now. Have so much to get caught back up on. I watch constant hours all of my live streams. Yeah. What a gong show. I haven't had even really much time to put into the Ottawa story, and I was following it very closely. I have all kinds of stuff on that too. But I guess that, like I said at the beginning of this, those kinds of things will be for another day. I have to focus. 100% of us don't believe Lisa bullshit story being outside all night. It's very difficult to believe, would be my belief. There was another piece I want to throw out there. And then maybe I'll call it a day and I'll do an interview with the rest of that interview. Okay. So, remember, actually, just give me 1 minute. I just had something pop into my head. I think I'm gonna play this. Hopefully you don't mind, because I know it's your material. But it just, for some reason, I haven't listened to it in a long time, and I have to. Okay. Then we can read that other thing. Seems apropos right about now. Those of you who know. Oh, blocked all of my, blocked another Twitter account I don't even use. How would you know? On accounts that you don't have. Right.
I'm blue, I've been deed, I've been died, 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 I've been deed, I've been died. I'm blue, I've been deed, I've been died, 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 I've been deed, I've been died. Yo, listen up, here's the story about a little guy that lives in a blue world. And all day and all night, and everything he sees is just blue. Like him, inside and outside. Blue his house with a blue little window and a blue Corvette. And everything is blue for him and himself and everybody around. Cause he ain't got nobody to listen. I'm blue, I've been deed, I've been died, I've been deed, I've been died, I've been deed, I've been died, I've been deed, I've been died.
Oh, that's so funny. See? Remember who was making the video? Was it December 4th? Oh, kind of waylaid the Lisa story. Was it Bedford Driver? Oh, no, not Bedford Driver. That's another account. He's got zillions of them. I love keeping paper trails on people. Got a few on a few people.
I'm blue, I've been deed, I've been died, 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 I've been deed, I've been died. I'm blue, I've been deed, I've been died, 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 I've been deed, I've been died. Blue house with a blue window. Blue is the color of all that I wear. Blue are the streets and all the trees are too. I have a girlfriend and she is so blue. Blue are the people here that walk around. Blue like my Corvette, it's in and outside. Blue are the words I say and what I think. inside me. I'm blue, I'm a need, I'm a died, 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 I'm a need, I'm a died. I'm blue, I'm a need, I'm a died, 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 I'm a need, I'm a died. I have a blue house with a blue window. Blue is the color of all that I wear. Blue are the streets and all the trees are blue. I have a girlfriend and she is so blue. Blue are the people here that walk around. Blue like my Corvette, it's standing outside. Blue are the words I say and what I think. Blue are the feelings that live inside me. I'm blue, I would need, I would die. 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 I'm blue, I would need, I would die. 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 I would need, I would die.
I don't think they liked all that getting foiled. Still have lots more on that one I can crop. It was fun as we went along, though. Anyway. Okay, so. Oh, my apologies. Let's have a look at this. Affidavit of Jeff Ricks. I, Jeff Ricks, City of Ottawa, Province of Ontario, do solemnly affirm the follows. Affidavit. Again, the strongest piece of evidence, whatever they want to call evidence. This one, I have a lot more faith in. Do you know, CERT, it can go after people who perjure themselves. Just in case people didn't know. I'm Assistant Deputy Director of Security Operations Division, Corrections Operations Program Sector of Corrections Service Canada, a position which I have held October 2020 as Deputy Director. My job and responsibilities include, among other portfolios, a development and management of CSC policy related to security equipment, including the Security Equipment Manual, which is the CSC's register for all approved security equipment. As such, I have personal knowledge of the facts and matters deposed herein, except where based on information and belief. I am aware that Mass Casualty Commission has been provided with information to suggest that the handcuffs attributed to being used by the perpetrator in the mass casualty event came from either Mr. Sean McLeod or Ms. Sean, Mr. Sean McLeod or Ms. Alana Jenkins, both of whom were employees of the CSC in the April 2020. Remember that Lisa's stuff about handcuffs, peerless handcuffs being inserted now into her statement? Peerless handcuffs. Remember a long time ago, I talked about the Smith & Wesson and peerless issue? I think I tweeted out some photos. I think that's like a year and some ago. I'm like, that's a bit of a problem. Then, of course, we had the emergence of Eric Fisher with the wire brush and finding the cuffs the next day in Shubenacadie on the road. He kicked a pile of ash, which just happened to be there, and found a pair of handcuffs. Took them home, crime scene. He knows about that as a crime scene, obviously, pretty major. He being witness to it, apparently. So takes the handcuffs home. Doesn't call the police. No, he doesn't call the police when he finds them on the road. He takes them home. Doesn't call the police then. He just decided to use a wire brush and WD-40 and scrub the hell out of them and then call the police. John Robin in his email about the handcuffs, which were never found, of course, up until then. And all along we're like, where's the fucking handcuffs? You say that she's handcuffed. Okay, where's the fucking handcuffs? Oh, they just appeared. Okay. Nova Institution uses only peerless 700C handcuffs. Each pair has its own serial number, factory engraved on the cheek plate, and on the opposite side, a model number, in this case 700C. Attached to my affidavit is Exhibit A, which are two photos, the Peerless 700C model handcuffs, which depict the location of serial number and model number. I am advised by the Deputy Warden of the Nova Institution and verily believe that the Institutional Security Maintenance Officer, pursuant to the Commissioner's Directive 570 Security Equipment, paragraph 5C, tracks handcuff assignments and inventory of serial number. Given these records, Nova Institution can confirm Ms. Jenkins had never reported a missing set of handcuffs. Attached to my affidavit is Exhibit B, a copy of the Commissioner's Directive 570. Spring Hill Institution. Like Nova Institution, staff at Spring Hill Institution are issued Peerless 700C handcuffs for their general duties, and assignment and inventory is tracked by the serial number pursuant to the Commissioner's Directive 570, Security Equipment, paragraph 5C. I have been advised by the Deputy Warden at Spring Hill Institution and verily believe, sworn in an affidavit, not a good place to not tell the truth, there are no written records or memory or oral reports of Mr. McLeod having ever reported missing handcuffs. So it sounds like neither of them had another set of handcuffs issued to them. He swears to that, of course, the last day of documents being accepted, the 4th of October. They did a lot of delay tactics, and then don't worry about it, like I tweeted out this morning. Don't worry, you don't need to have any of those other things. Okay. but this one got in right under the wire, right? Okay, affidavit A. Okay, so here we have picture of the handcuffs, right? Okay. Now, engraved. Not, some bullshitty little, whatever you call that stuff, where they superimpose the number with some kind of paint or whatever. No, engraved into the handcuff. Okay. Here we go on the back side. 700C model, right? Now, that's all legally done. I don't think we need to get into the actual directive. Now, in the latest dump, there are a lot of pictures, a lot more pictures of the handcuffs. Originally, there were 2. Now there are a lot. Okay, PE Exhibit 446. Let's just see if we can find one that fits. This is very interesting. The writing that somehow goes on here through the bag. Okay, whatever. Now, do you see anything there? Any engraving? Be very evident. Would it not? Huh. Okay. Yes, this is the evidence bag stuff on here written. Not sure how that happens, but maybe somehow. This is you can tell from the evidence bag. 0610, June 10th. This is when things are getting shipped off to Ottawa to be tested. Just another angle. I'm looking for another photo here. Okay, so now let's look at, so would you agree that there is no engraving? Right. Another thing I think that's worthy of note is that there are no wire brush marks. One would think, metal on metal, and you're scrubbing using a wire brush. Don't know how many of you have done that. I certainly have, cleaning parts or whatever out of the ranch. It leaves score marks. There doesn't seem to be score marks that I can see on these cuffs. Would remove the charring and what have you. No, they don't seem to be there. Neither does the engraving. Okay. So they don't seem to be the peerless cuffs that are assigned. Anyways. Now. So the bag was initially labeled a Smith & Wesson cuffs, which I can show you, but that was the original problem that I had with the cuff. Way back then, I believe that was before the Fisher stuff came out. Maybe. I don't know. All right. Now, if we look at 700C. So here I am, Handcuff Warehouse, Peerless Model C, right? So the engraving is literally the same as the Made in USA and stuff, which is clearly visible on the other cuffs. Now, I don't know if I'd be able to show this, but if you look closely at the bolt patterns, the rivet patterns on here, and the dots, and where the key is, and the direction of the key, those cuffs aren't a 700C, in my opinion. They are a 702C, which is a different model. Oh. Because you can tell from the picture if you put them up side by side. I don't believe that they are a 700C. Let's see, though. I would think that it had scoring on it. This is the wrong side. But clearly no serial numbers. None assigned to them. Didn't seem to lose any. I could be wrong about the 702C, but and I think it'll be difficult to prove. Like I can do a side-by-side comparison, but not while I'm doing a video. All right, so there's the Peerless. It's quite clearly quite visible, like the serial number should be. You know, shoelaces and such. I don't know if maybe they use serial numbered cuffs or not. Seems like a fairly easy question, actually, to find out the answer from officers, but you never know. Now here you do see some scoring, which is interesting. Some. Not much, though. Still no model number. Peerless? Nope. Anyway, I'll put it together and put it out. And you can be the judge. Some goofs on Facebook were trying to say that Peerless flipped upside down was a serial number. Those are clearly letters. Yeah. Which I don't know how it got bagged and tagged as a Smith & Wesson set. Those of you who remember, I was like, no. Let's see if they have that picture. They'll have all the evidence bags. There's quite a few of them. We had John Robin in the case of do you see the pattern? It doesn't align with what a 700 C cuff is. I don't know if I'll get there's a lot of them. They're marking cuffs for DNA testing, which I don't know if I've seen a DNA report. Where's the bag pictures? That's where you can tell that the writing on it's gone through the bag or somehow it's transferred. I'm not sure how that is, but because you have June 10th, I think, isn't it June 10th, 2020, where it's off to Ottawa. Oh, this is upsetting me. I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Oh. WD-40 and fire would have eliminated a DNA component. But they were being tested. That's why they're marked with like AE. Those are just different points that they're testing. Okay, so here you can see in one evidence bag, right? Is this the one? Yes, 2020-0610. It's only a month later that they're doing the massive cert referral. That somehow got transferred onto the cuffs at one point. I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but let's see. I love how they do this to people. Give them. Now, if you look at the bag, that's what I was originally going on about way back when. The bag says right here, burnt handcuffs, Smith and Wesson. It's pretty clear right here. Now, I don't know how Peerless handcuffs suddenly turn into Smith and Wesson handcuffs, but one only knows, I don't know. Bargain basement? What? Peerless or security guard bargain bin basement cuffs? Lunch baggie, you mean? I hoped it was washed before someone bagged them. Bagel sandwiches might leave residue. Yeah, so here you can actually see that they're testing it. And yes, very good point. I mean, how it's been through fire, wire brush, and all kinds of other shit. Let's see. One has to wonder how they're getting DNA off of it, the DNA blood card samples. I guess it's not to say definitively that they did. I don't remember the FIS report for the handcuffs, but it seemingly would be very difficult to last through fire that intense, and then also equally get WD-40'd and scrubbed and then mislabeled, and I'm just like, I don't know. Plus you have an affidavit backing up that no extra cuffs were ever assigned to them, and the cuffs have no serial number on them, which they all do, like police do. Shoelaces. Anyway, I just thought it was very interesting. So maybe that whole business about the Sean uniform stuff, there's way, way more to the story. I think maybe. I mean, coming from Lisa, I would say it's somewhat circumspect. Would be that's just my opinion. I believe I'm entitled to my opinion. But being that she's the one that claims that Sean gave Wortman the uniform and hat and pants, like the pants and the shirt, the yellow stripe. She's pretty clear. She describes the RCMP headband somewhat on the hat. And then, where's that? The one moment. Max, can't remember anything. Did I pay? I don't know. Did I pay? Not sure. Police paraphernalia. Of course, they have the, just like they do on many of these. And, maybe somebody can agree to check this periodically for me or something every day. Just flip through them and see if stuff's being added. But if we go down here, Lisa Banfield, 48 addendum being added, right? In her interview, Mass Casualty, April 11th, 2022, Lisa Banfield said the perpetrator obtained CSC jacket, RCMP gray general duty uniform shirt, and dark blue pants with yellow stripe, and the peerless handcuffs from Sean McLeod. Well, in the statement, it doesn't actually have that. So that's being added. How do you add that exactly? And did she happen to memorize what kind of handcuffs he had gotten? That seems a bit strange. Subsequent paragraph numbering should be adjusted accordingly because you add information. It changes things on the paragraph numbering. I think there's a lot more to the whole uniform stuff and handcuff stuff. And very not right to frame up or attribute, let's put it that way, attribute RCMP gear coming from the wrong person. Wouldn't it? That wouldn't be very good, especially if it's a victim. It's very difficult to make a mistake with Smith & Wesson and Peerless. Smith & Wesson used deep stamping and hinge door instead of chain link. Truth and All has an issue with the handcuffs. And I'll do the side-by-side comparison in case you do not understand. Oh, cuffs, yes, in case you do not understand. What am I not understanding? What am I not understanding? Yes, you do? You do what? Did Wiley report any lost handcuffs? You know what? Actually, I can find out probably what type of handcuffs are used. You do price for the cuffs? Oh, what did it say? $22 or something American? Did I keep that window open? No. Of course not. 7 million windows open at one time. One would think I might have actually left it open. The 700C handcuff is, I don't know if that, does that help you? $26.53. I'm assuming US. So was there any eBay purchases for 700? I believe it is, like I said, I believe it is a 702. Was it the 702? I'll have to go through and check, but I think it is the 702 model, which is slightly different. 2020. These are quite a bit more expensive, but they're oversized, so I don't know. They're made for bigger people, I guess, or something. $23. What? Oh, you know where to get them? $23. I don't know. I've never looked at handcuffs. I just put Fearless in. I remember a long time ago I went to their website. Oh, again, I wouldn't know. These type of cuffs aren't generally used for that type of activity because there's not a quick release on it. So, usually that's those kinds of things have kind of built-in fail-safes just to protect the other. How would you phrase that? I don't know. The person being restrained, I think. But has this video been out before? Which video? What handcuffs do they use? I don't know. I can try and find out, but I don't. I'll be honest. I have no idea at this point in time. Todd may know. I think they do use Smith & Wessons. Same with the RCMP, but I'm just hazarding to guess. Is that correct? Anybody know? Just on Amazon now, you can get Smith & Wessons for $120 and a set of Peerless for $90. Is anybody interested in buying cuffs? I don't know. I guess this is good to know. Good to know. Yeah. I would assume they're fairly expensive. I do know that they do operate within constraints like ammunition and things like that. Like if they go around and get a new pistol or things like that, there's usually some griping about how they're trying to save money in certain places. But police in Pictou also had guns, cuffs, and uniforms stolen from their cars. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of shit going missing from every which way. But who's to say? But I would say that I think the oh, and I do need to make a correction. Sorry. Yesterday I spoke, it's not a huge correction. It's an interesting one, though, and thank you very much for pointing it out. I like to make sure that I try and do things right. So I spoke about 13744 Leah Scanlon's notes and how oh, my apologies. I think I put the correction in the notes for yesterday's video about that part. That this was pulled, and it was pulled. However, there was a reissue of this, and as I was speaking yesterday, saying that this was under solicitor-client privilege. There were 3 pages that either got waived, or they deemed it not applicable. So the new notes are, let me see, what is that? Thank you for letting me know very much. One moment. The new COM for that is 63053. So I want to make sure that that's on the record, and the pages are unredacted. It's mostly dealing with alert type stuff. I hypothesized incorrectly that it might have something to do with, I haven't studied it in depth, but I believe most of it's all to do with alert. But I had hypothesized that there may have some more to do with the phone call. Can't you be charged with witness tampering? Yes. Who's tampering witnesses? The weapon engravings look pretty much like Peerless to me. It looks like the Shuby cuffs are Peerless. Well, I pretty much think it says it. No? Peerless? I know my eyes are going from reading, but yes, the Law C8. Was that the Lilly article? Lots of gear seems to disappear. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Okay, I do want to read the rest of that because the whole Leon, that's just really, I don't know, it's just not good. Trauma-informed, trauma my ass. All you did is traumatize. The Felix interview. Yeah, well. I thought the stamping and the stamping was wrong, the circular one versus the ovular one, but I could be wrong. Irrespective, the cuffs, at least sworn in an affidavit, which I, again, will trust that, don't appear to come from John Milano. Don't appear to have any engraving on it. So I'm going to probably go with that they're neither John nor Alanis. So what's Lisa talking about? Trust no one. Well, you do have to be leery. Inadvertently deleted Clinton's statement. I do hope that that Nova Scotia has coroner inquests or those types of things. I really do. There's a lot of questions around all of that. Don't seem to be. I haven't seen anything updated from the RCMP in respect to that, but do you guys know if there was anything in respect to Leon other than a person on Portapic was located deceased at 12:20? Has there been any further update? I'm going to say the comment that just came on the screen, I'll probably agree with. There seems to be a lot of questions about. I love D49. That's an absolute train wreck. But they never touched that either. This guy go back automatically see her to serial. Sorry. So would this guy automatically go back to serial number to see if it was one of theirs? I don't believe there was a serial number to compare them to that I could see. And it wasn't like embossed or anything. It was deeply stamped into them, as sworn to in an affidavit. So seems as credible as you probably get. Perjury. You can't. That always can come around to bite people in the ass. All right. So I'll wrap that up. I gotta go back and I don't figure out where Leon's stuff I left off. Felix's statement before. Reacted. And I'll probably start around there. And then we'll get into the July 10th stuff. Felix is not wanting to really follow up on what appears to be something extremely serious. All right. There was a serial number covered up, started with 6 and ended with 2. Where? On the cuffs? Oh, that picture is from them. That's just a sample picture, meaning in the affidavit? In the affidavit? That's not the actual cuffs. That's a sample cuff that they used. Where's that? Here. This one? That's a sample cuff. In my understanding. Well, I could go back and look here. Attached my copy, Ms. Jenkins, attached my copy, Exhibit B. Okay, that's directive. Okay. Attached are 2 photos of the Peerless model handcuffs, which depict the location of serial number and model. Interesting. It doesn't say a sample, but it doesn't equally say the actual cuff. But in the picture, you can't see it. So I'm going to go with that it's not. Right? That seems fairly safe. I couldn't, looking through all the pictures, I couldn't ever see any evidence that there was even a whiff. Why have they got privilege redaction on? Well, I think it's probably the that's going to be, those actual cuffs are going to be assigned to somebody. It's like those Visa cards and shit they used to show on TV. Remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 0, 0, or whatever the fuck they did with it. Just so it didn't, you don't have some specific person. Too clean to be the burnt ones? Yeah. Hey, look, I found some cuffs. Let's take them home. Right. What was Robin's message on that, too? He had a message about that. He was all involved with the handcuff stuff. September 21st. Okay, running down to the wire. 2 days before the next dump, I think is it the 23rd? That's the dump. This report clarifies chain of custody. RCMP members' handcuffs exhibited corrects inaccurate information and reasonably concludes that these handcuffs are associated with the perpetrator, whoever that is. Since they can't name him, I guess it could be anybody. Eric Fisher, 6:30, walked over to Shubenacadie Circle on the 20th. Mr. Fisher was a witness to the events that had occurred there. He and his wife walked over to the location after the RCMP had released the crime scene. Mr. Fisher explained in a statement to Mr. Greg Vardy, Staff Sergeant Vardy, he walked over there to try to understand what had happened. He advised that there were flowers, wreaths, and everything else present. Nobody else seemed to see this pile of ash, but whatever, I would think. Plus, we have the bumpers or something now. I don't know how that's getting left behind, but very strange. Bumper in the middle of the road. Nobody notices that. Push bar or whatever you want to call it. Mr. Fisher observed leftover debris on the shoulder of the road, including on the shoulder of the road. Okay. Including melted metal and melted rods. He looked closer and he saw a set of handcuffs on the ground near the collision location. Mr. Fisher described the handcuffs as being charred, and although visible, he had to remove some debris. So they were visible. This seems very odd. He picked the handcuffs and took them home. He didn't want to leave them there. He stated that the RCMP, using a wire brush. This is not normal. No. Why did he want to clean it up for the RCMP? Seems a bit off. I can't see why somebody would waste their time. Unless they wanted to keep them, but clearly he didn't, because then he called them. He attempted to clean them using a solvent, noting WD-40, which does happen to take off quite a bit of stuff. It's not as good as Barsol or something, but Mr. Fisher contacted RCMP the next day. Constable Matthew Perry attended the Fisher's home, took possession of the handcuffs. Kerry completed general occurrence report, described the handcuffs as burnt, identified them as, of course, Smith & Wesson, which I had spoken about last year. The fuck? Now all of a sudden, oh yeah, oops, Yeah, we did miss ID it. The cuffs were contained in a Ziploc bag. What did you say? Bagel baggie or something. Serial number was not noted on the report. Huh. Note, subsequent observations by commission investigators identified the handcuffs as peerless cuffs. More is said on later in this report. The exhibit will be turned over to 3 other RCMP officers, secured catalog to PE 446, 3 officers, chain of custody. See, there should be all of this stuff for all of the evidence, like, I don't know, kids' clothes, custody reports, chain of custody on all kinds of shit. Anything. Where are they? Must be in those 75,000 plus documents. Which, oh, right, don't have. Constable Josh Burcham and Constable Ben Kershaw. The exhibit secured at RCMP Bible Hill pending further investigation and analysis. Review noted that Constable Matt Perry, and Constable Josh Burcham described the cuffs as Smith & Wesson. The notes, Greg Vardy, Kershaw did not mention the brand. However, sequence of continuity, for exhibit and their notes are consistent with the chain of custody task ID 174. Still not seeing anything to do with the serial number. Handcuffs belonging to Constable Heidi Stevenson were located on her duty belt while they have serial numbers. Her handcuffs seized accordingly, identified as RCMP PE 595. DNA testing. Line 75 RCMP exhibit describes the handcuffs located at Subanakity Circle as described police equipment property tag. The exhibit also indicates that PE 446 was sent to RCMP Forensic Lab, tested by Biology Services DNA analysis. The DNA information sheet explains DNA testing. RCMP Biology Service examined 11 areas on the cuffs. These areas were identified as the letters. Okay, so some of those are present in the pictures. 5 areas examined did not meet the minimum requirements for further processing. 6 other areas were tested and no other DNA. So now we're up to 11, right? So no DNA. Commission investigators associated the handcuffs located at Subanakity Circle. Their first task represented the cuffs located at the crime scene. A report by Commissioner Investigator Stephen Henkel describes the handcuffs that were found and details explanation provided to Chief Superintendent John Robin through Corporal Rose Berthium. Quote, handcuffs located by FIS, Forensic Identification Services, Cloverleaf scene near the fake police car that obviously they just want to take the name out or something's going on there that's inserted whenever there's brackets, was driving. These handcuffs did not belong to Constable Stevenson and were badly burned in the fire. These handcuffs were sent to DNA negative results. No handcuffs were recovered from Portapique. Lisa Banfield indicated statement was able to pull off the handcuffs from her wrist in the back of the fake police car. Based on whatever. They always just got to keep sewing it, right? Fake, mock. Notice some officers will not use the term. I find that very interesting. Based on the handcuffs located, believed to be the handcuffs seized in Cloverleaf Circle, scene may have come from the vehicle. Investigators did not determine that these are the handcuffs Lisa Banfield had on the night, although the circumstances may suggest that they may be. But they still don't have a serial number, and they're still not talking about that. Other than they said that they couldn't locate one. Let's see if they do later. The information provided by Corporal Rose Berthium in the above email is incorrect. The handcuffs that were located by Mr. Fisher, who ultimately provided them to the RCMP on April 21st. Furthermore, during the interview, Mr. Fisher, Staff Sergeant Vardy, stated that the RCMP had been looking for the handcuffs. Interviews with Lisa Banfield, RCMP, April 19th, April 28th, and in follow-up interview, Mass Casualty Commission, April 11th, 2022, April 13th, 2022, April 20, 2022, stated that the perpetrator had a pair of handcuffs that were issued similar to issued police. She advised perpetrator had shown her the handcuffs April 18th, 2020, and thought that they were kept in the warehouse. Miss Banfield also advised that perpetrator kept a key for the handcuffs in his wallet, and thought the perpetrator may have obtained the cuffs from Sean McLeod and Alana Jenkins. Well, that seems to have changed, because now suddenly they've added that they're peerless cuffs. And definitively says that she obtained, definitively, like she testified to in the MCC, I believe. But this is pretty definitive. Said the perpetrator obtained CSC jacket, RCMP gray shirt, black pants, or dark blue pants, yellow stripe, and peerless handcuffs. Really, think about this one just logically. What kind of cuff are they? I'm gonna remember that. What? And this is being added to her statement, because even John Robin doesn't seem to know about it. What does he refer to them as? A pair of handcuffs that were similar, not peerless cuffs, no mention. And may have obtained, he thinks. It somehow translates to peerless cuffs and did. No. Property found at Enfield Big Stop. Investigators seized items, Maz 3, and a duty belt, handcuff key, okay, blah, blah, blah. Duty belt, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything. Requested disclosure of handcuffs found at the Shubenacadie Circle. Produced 55 computerized images. These photos depict the handcuffs inside and outside RCMP plastic exhibit bag. I don't know how it's getting writing on it, though. Commission investigators noted the markings in the photographs were consistent with the labels used for PE 446. I guess the baggy stuff got cleaned off. Cited in documentation described, hopefully before they were doing DNA testing, but maybe they were using WD-40 and wire brushes over there too. However, investigators noted that the handcuffs had been misbranded. Misbranded. I don't know. Maybe you just can't read. Constable Perry's initial report, specifically the photographs, clearly showed the clearly showed. It's almost like they were watching the video when I was shitting all over it and tweeting about it. Handcuffs, Smith & Wesson described as Constable Perry's general occurrence report. The photos showed that the handcuffs were dark in color. Okay, so they're black, they're silver, dark, consistent with being burned. There were no serial numbers in any of the paperwork on any of the photos viewed by the commissioner investigators. Uh-oh. The locking mechanism appears to be consistent with other handcuffs, requiring key, blah, blah, blah. Most handcuffs used by law enforcement can be opened with universal. Okay, this is just meaningless bullshit. Exhibit photos, handcuffs, Shubenacadie Circle included, blah, blah, blah. These photographs included in the supplementary report. Okay, and I would say, okay, open source material. Serial numbers are not always part of the manufacturing process when sold to suppliers. Furthermore, peerless cuffs are readily available for purchase by members from both online and in various stores. However, the manufacturer stamps model numbers, and serial numbers on handcuffs. These numbers are located near the keyhole and depict in this photograph Peerless Handcuff website. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm talking about. RCMP issued handcuffs. DOJ disclosed the RCMP handcuff guideline, which indicates the only acceptable models RCMP, Peerless Handcuff, and Smith & Wesson handcuff. Okay, so they also used the 700. It doesn't say C, but I guess they used the same model. And they also used Smith & Wesson. Perhaps that's why Constable Perry misidentified them. I don't know. A formal request was made to DOJ to determine the brand that has been or currently issued to Correction Service Canada employees. Why are you immediately zeroing in there? DOJ, you have no evidence to support what you're saying. DOJ advised CSC officers are issued several brands, including Smith & Wesson Peerless handcuffs. The response noted that since 2004, restraint equipment handcuffs assigned to two CSC employees manufacturer's serial number. A record is kept. Conclusion, Lisa Banfield advised the perpetrator had shown a set of handcuffs, a set of April, not Peerless. She also told the RCMP mass casualty that the perpetrator had a set of handcuffs, placing her in the back of the car. She also explained that she was able to free her wrist. Mr. Eric Fisher found a set of Peerless. The handcuffs had been burned. Okay, WD-40, handcuffs cataloged. Biological DNA failed to identify. Constable Stevenson's handcuffs located. No conclusive evidence to link. No conclusive evidence to link PE 446 to the perpetrator, or who? Sean and Alana. In fact, there's strong, verily believed, sworn in an affidavit under threat of perjury that they did not believe that they are Sean and Alana's because they had serial numbers and no serial number. No serial number. So I guess somebody just came along, and burned a set of handcuffs and threw them on the side of the road. Because that happens all the time, doesn't it? Okay, let's see. Oh, where is that made? Oh yes, actually I do know that. They have a fucking factory there. Okay, well those are Todd's old cuffs. Quite clearly marked, right? On the other side, I believe you can see serial number. Now, Springfield, Massachusetts, actually, I believe it says Holton. But I don't understand why it's WE. But I believe Holton also, Holton, Maine also has a Smith & Wesson facility. Now, so what the fuck? Are we supposed to believe that somebody came along with burnt handcuffs, put them in a pile of ash after all this went down so that Mr. Fisher could find them and take them home and scrub them? Does that seem logical? Because it's not what's in the affidavit. So therefore, my default on evidence, even the RCMP, Robin, is this Robin? Oh, where's Robin shit about the fucking handcuff stuff? He's got some goop in here about that too. Oh, I'm not even seeing that now. Let's see. The mass casualty can't find any relation. Here we go. Yeah. There's Robin in the handcuff mess. Total bullshit, man. It's total bullshit. If anybody believes this. Wow. You can just tell anybody anything and they'll believe it. Even when there's like strong evidence to say, no. Okay. Somebody must have just taken another set of cuffs, burned them, also got a pile of ash from somewhere, put them over the cuffs so somebody could find them the next day, even though people are putting wreaths and shit down. Yeah. So you can take them home and WD-40 them and wire brush them just to call the RCMP the next day. Bullshit. God bless you all. God bless the 24.